Alright, welcome back. This is Adam of ACG at itch.io. This is episode 2 of Let's Dev. Gonna continue working on the UV sheet and try and get a little bit of the texture made for this engine we were building in episode 1, modeling in episode 1 rather. And then I'll see where we're going to go from there. You may occasionally hear an additional person talking. My wife, Trez, is home, and I don't know if she'll say anything, but she might. If you hear somebody else talking in the mic, that's probably who it is, because
Hi.
she's there. She is, because she's the only other person here. If you hear a different voice, then we've got serious problems. Alright, so I'm going to do something a little bit weird with this UV map, just because I want to make a turbine fan, and I actually think I can show you a really cool way, if anybody else is out there building 3D models, watching this, thinking about doing something. A cool way you can make this texture, and you could probably do this in any bitmap editing software. You could probably even make a turbine this way in GIMP if you wanted to, or any other free bitmapping software. I'll be doing it in Photoshop, but you know, a lot of these things are work similar in a lot of those different programs. Okay, but this is the circle. I guess let me. This is where the turbine would go in our model, and I've got it highlighted on the UV map. We're going to cut in a couple of seams here. And then unfold everything. And I'm just going to cut every other quad, I guess, in this model. I'm going to highlight so we can cut seams into it, or mark seams. I guess cutting seams is a Maya term. We're working in Blender now, so I'm marking the seams here. Evenly spaced all the way around. There we go, yeah. And then just mark those seams. Then we will unwrap that. We'll get all these equally shaped little islands of geometry. And I'm just gonna kind of start stacking these up, because I'm gonna want them to all have a repeating texture that just goes around that circle of geometry. And I just want it to be the same in each section. We're going to hand paint a turbine for this model. Let's see here. These snap to the same grid, or are they going to be? Yeah, no, that's a little bit. Let's just do this manually, because we can align the vertexes once we get everything close. There's another trick we can do that'll just make everything perfectly line up. Alright, so let's do just the vertexes, and then do a line Y to make everything line up along the Y-axis. Then take this edge and align to X, and everything's all squared away. All those vertexes should be perfectly stacked now. We'll move this out of the way because I want to see where it's going to line up with everything else on our UV sheet. Move this guy over. And let's see, where do I want this to go? It's kind of just like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. You gotta find the right space for things to fit without, wasting any extra space. And honestly, this isn't going to get a lot of scrutiny because it's on the front of the engine, and when you're racing, you're not going to be looking at it. It can have a little bit less detail than some of the other areas, and I don't think anybody will even notice at the angles you'll be seeing it in the game. Although I don't know if you're watching and thinking you've got a gap in your UV map there that is just wasted space. That's what I'm thinking, so I'm going to make a little bit more geometry that we can map into there. Then we don't have to worry about it being on the other map, the other material map that we're going to make for the rest of the ship. So we're going to do engines. Engines are the star of the show, and then we'll do a separate material for everything else. Let's see, where do I want the fins to go? We'll put one here. Let's go ahead and grab another quad, because I'm just going to extrude these. Let's see, extrude these out. What do I want to do with them? What do I want to do? Guess the easiest way to do this would probably just be snap these to the grid. Put that one right there. This one, I want them to be about symmetrical. Didn't actually count, I probably should have. Although it'll be fine. It's you know, it's art, it's all about feelings and shit. It feels right.
Does it feel right?
And you gotta feel it out. That's how you do.
Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs? Art thou feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?
Oh, they'll be feeling it. All the Mr. Krabses out there. Krabses. Krabsitudes will be feeling it. And, you know, on some of my other ships, I've put flaps on these wings, although if we stick with the idea I was talking about in the last episode of making the whole engine, the whole back half of the ship be an engine and wing combination that just moves together, which I think is going to look really flashy in the end product. Going to look nice when it's animating and moving around in the game. We should be okay. So I'm not going to worry about the flaps. We're going to do it all as one big piece. Maybe, why not put a little bit of a bevel on this. This will give me a chance to also show a little bit about the quads and making sure that you don't have any n-gons in your geometry, which is important to think about, but something that isn't talked about in a lot of 3D art forums I've noticed. So actually, that's going to maybe mess up my UV map. Let me actually make an adjustment here real quick. Just cut in a quick edge loop up here. Edge loop down on that fin. And then instead of having it go all the way into the cylinder that's UV'd the way we want, for the most part already, we'll cut that into the geometry that we've just extruded out, and we're going to have to make a UV island for it separately anyway. And then, yeah, you can see here how it cuts that try into that edge loop that we just made. And I can show you a little trick for dealing with that. Because right here is our problem. These are, tries are okay, because it'll be triangulated when it goes into the engine anyway. And quads, anything with just 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 vertexes, is perfectly alright, because they'll cut a diagonal when you import it, and it'll just triangulate smoothly that way. But an n-gon, as it's called, which is it's a piece of geometry that has the variable n number of sides, anything over 4 in the case of game art. And you don't want to have n-gons. So, let me show you in Blender a good way to get rid of these. You want to just be in your vertex select mode. And pay attention to what order you select them in, because this edge of the geometry I want to keep the same. So I'm going to merge vertices at last, because I selected that edge second, so it was the last selection. And these are now collapsed into one vertex, making 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, smoothly cutting in that extra edge that we needed for the shape of the wing without creating any malformed geometry or anything that'll cause problems in the game engine. But we'll need to do that with all of the edges that we just cut in. Then this would be a good time to also show off the cleanup function that I've been using in Blender, because there's a cleanup in Maya that you can just kind of use. It's just one button, and it's really helpful. And I was kind of lost without that for a while when I was trying to relearn this one, but it's pretty simple. You just select all by trait, and then faces by sides. And then right now it's got basically everything selected because it should be mostly quads, and this is equal to 4 vertices, so all the quads are selected. These tries up here and these ones we just cut in are the only things that are not selected right now. But if you set this to greater than, it will select all of the geometry with more than 4 sides. And as you can see, nothing is selected now. So that means we've got well-built geometry, even though we beveled that edge and changed some things around. So that's all good. That's basically the whole test. And okay, how do I want to? Actually, this isn't quite the way I want it yet. Let's grab these and these. This one, take advantage of that bevel we just put in and get that a little bit more of an aerodynamic looking shape. Let's kind of scooch those in a little bit. And that really makes me think, kind of want to just scooch all of this at the top a little bit more. Angle it back. And there we go. Yeah, that's all looking pretty good. But we do need to map that to the UV sheet because this is all new geometry. As you can see, what are you, I'm losing my words here, but the UV tile that I've got applied to this object is all warped up there. It doesn't look right at all. So let's go ahead and get these selected. Grab all that new geometry. And just to get started, I'm going to go ahead and project it just from my viewport. Alright, let's pull up that UV sheet. And this, we only selected the outside edges of that map, of that geometry. The top is still going to be mapped to the cylinder that we'd already mapped it out to earlier, and honestly, I'm okay with that. I'm just going to leave it as is. But we do need to make a seam. Yeah, there we go. And unwrap that. Alright, and then I could find a way to just mirror this perfectly or flip it over the axis, because that's really what I need here. And then we could just have it be, stacking UVs like that can allow you to have symmetrical textures on geometry that is the same. Like if it is built the same and it is unwrapped the same, then you could just stack them on top of each other and put one texture on it, save you space on your texture sheet and everything. And it's another one of those things that I would know how to do right off in Maya, and I'm not sure if I know how to do it.
But the benefit of learning is that we learn new skills.
It is true, and the price is right on Blender.
Right, and, you know, at the end of it, at least it's not like what stupid-ass, Unity is doing. Because that really is just ridiculous. It feels like a kick in the teeth to everyone who's trying to, like, make a go of actually doing something cool, and they're just like, nah, we're gonna put all of the cost onto you. It's terrible.
And
retroactively,
like we're gonna go back through and charge you for.
That's the
Yeah.
craziest part.
I mean,
like,
that can't be.
retroactively.
That can't
That's
be
insane.
legal. You know, like. But I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. I don't use Unity. I'm more happy than ever that I never made the changeover. Although I never really understood why it became the definitive indie engine. Because it doesn't, like, it never had as competitive of a monetization agreement as Unreal did. And Unreal's got all the features of Unreal. But that's just me. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry to put you off on a rant, but
No. I mean, that's topical. It's part devlog, part podcast, part kind of let's play because I feel like this is my play. I do this for fun.
you nerd.
Um, and so some topical stuff. Will only liven up the conversation, liven up the mood while we manipulate our UV sheet here, which I'm sure everybody does to unwind. I mean,
It's that's fine. I sit and mindlessly scroll Reddit, so
it's true. I don't do the Reddit, or any social media really. So I I miss out on all of that good fun, which I hear is good fun.
It's better than the Book of Faces, the old people book. Where racist grandmas are at.
Ah, Boomer Book. Boom Book.
Boom book. Where old people go to talk about how they're better than everybody and then complain about how none of their family wants to talk to them anymore.
I'm not sure if you're going to be close enough for the mic to be picking you up, but yeah. I apologize if we have bad radio etiquette, everyone. We're not professionals.
What are you
Yet.
talking about? I'm a trained professional.
We're not professionals yet.
What are you talking about? I'm a trained professional. Not at this, but at something.
Now, I have occasionally, you know what, we're going to just test it out and see how it works. We may have to adjust this UV sheet when we import it into the engine, because I have this UV, one of these flaps is technically at a negative UV scale, which I have had cause problems with the normals on a different upload. But that was when the whole geometry was on a negative scale. And this time, it's only the UV sheet. You can see here how that's kind of starting to look. Let me see if I can maybe get that to look a little less. These lines I would like to be a little more lined up and not quite so not quite so warped looking. We'll do a couple of adjustments here. Actually, I think I'm going to tessellate that just a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Ups the poly count just a little bit, but it'll make the texture set more evenly. On the surface. let's see, are we about ready to go make a texture for this thing? It's looking pretty okay, pretty good start. Okay, let's just get that. Make sure everything is yeah, okay. Make sure everything is stacked up correctly on this UV. Get it set up the way we want it. Because you don't want to have to make these adjustments after you've painted the texture. Then it's a lot more work. Okay. There we go. Very well utilized UV map. If I do say so myself, which I did. And we'll select everything, get that whole UV sheet filled out. And if you just go to UV export UV layout, make a new folder, which is, you could probably see here, I have not been doing for all of the models, but you really should do that from the very beginning. Keep everything organized. But I was prototyping, and there's always like a 50-50 chance you're going to wind up scrapping everything and just getting rid of the whole thing. So let's see, this is engine UV3, and this is just for that engine, which we're gonna duplicate. So the same texture will be used for both of the engines that I'm going to put on this final model. I think we probably only need to do a 512 texture map. This isn't a, we're making a game for all rigs. It's not super graphically intense, the stuff I'm making, so I'm okay with using some smaller texture maps. And then we'll just export that. And again, I'll be working in Photoshop, but you could do this in any image editing software. Let's see, there we go. And there we go, that's our UV sheet that we laid out. Keep that in its own layer, because we're going to want to hide that at the end, unless if you want a texture of a wireframe on your model, which sometimes can look really cool. I'm not going to tell you you would never want that. Put that underneath, make that layer underneath. And actually, I think I'm going to start with this trick for for the turbines that I was talking about. Because we'll just make a rectangle underneath that. I'm just going to make it kind of a metallic gray. You want to have a little bit of overlap over your UVs. So you don't have transparent or white edges or whatever your background color is around the seam of the geometry. That would be really noticeable and kind of visually jarring. But then we can take the burn tool, or if you're using GIMP, you could just do this with a gradient, just make it a little bit darker and darker. But for this, I'm going to go ahead and just burn it. Along this one edge. And let it kind of make a gradient that will make this edge appear as though it's lower than the other edge, like a fan blade going back into a turbine. And then this will repeat. Let's see. Alright, about like that. That should go all the way up to the edge of this. Although, you know, I'm going to actually move that down just a touch, just to make sure. And that's how I'm going to handle that.
That's the way we're gonna do it.
Because it's a mess.
Because it's get your brooms.
Get your brooms.
It's a mess.
Because it's a mess. Then let's see, we gotta pick some colors for this racer, something vibrant and flashy, because it's a commercial. People are making money off of these race cars. Or race jets, race ships, whatever you want to call them. So let's maybe make this one a lime green. Just make that I like to keep everything on separate layers as much as I can. Try and let things, if I make a mistake, that gives me the ability to come back later and fix it more easily.
I feel like that makes sense, because, like, if you mess up on one of the layers, then, like, instead of having to be like, oh, well, I have to go back and take all of this complicated
it's
stuff
ruined,
apart.
yeah, you know.
You can instead be like, okay, well, I just need to get this part taken care of, and then I'll be good to go. That makes sense.
I'm gonna be looking at this model a little bit while I'm doing this as well, because I want to try and keep track of this being, let's see, 1, 2, so that seam is going to be okay, so we've got, these are the seams, I'm pretty sure. I'm going to want to darken these in. Actually, let's go ahead and do that with the burn tool again. Just scoop. And do. Kind of darken that all in. Kind of make it darker as it goes more towards the center of the groove, because that's where the shadows would be the most intense. Do the same down here. The seams, if I remember from looking at it, 2 seconds ago, were directly above and below these little decorative notches that we cut into the geometry in the last video. Oops, that was the... Just Control Z that. Alright. There's those shadows. Let's see, opposite of green on the color wheel, just to make things really pop, is red. Maybe a little darker than that. Maybe a little oranger than that too. I don't know if I want it to be quite that. The problem with using green, in my humble opinion, is that the opposite on the color wheel is red, and that winds up being Christmas colors. And it can make things look a little Christmassy if you're not careful with how you use it. But it can still be a very effective color palette that pops. And we need to actually have the paintbrush, or that's not going to work. And we're just going to paint in these. Well, for me, I'm going to do this as an accent right there at the inside of these vents. Just being really careful about the outside edge, but not so much about the inside edge, because I'm going to cover that up with a different color. I know I'm going to try and keep these videos more or less to an hour, so we're probably going to be wrapping this one up shortly, but I'm going to try and get at least a little bit of a texture that we can preview, just so I can kind of end the video with a here's how everything looks all together kind of bit. And hopefully you'll be able to bear with me. I suppose it's a pre-recorded video, so if you are bored with this, you could always just fast forward to the part at the end where I'm going to show the fruit of this labor. I would love it if I had access to Substance Painter, because, oh, we could be doing such flashy, fun stuff with that one, but alas, we cannot.
Maybe after January.
Yeah, maybe after we get a little finances sorted and all what have you, there'll be some new videos that will show off some of the more Pro Tools kind of things that we can do. With this software, with the right software. Do do. Oh, dead air.
Dead
And
air.
dead air. Gotta keep it going. Let's see here. And just try and go a little bit quick, because I do want to keep this from running on forever. Plus, we've got date night with Baldur's Gate tonight.
Baldur's Gate.
Which is vitally important.
Super important.
We'll not live without our dose of Baldur's Gate. Do. Let's just get in close here. Make a couple of circles. Try and keep them nice and lined up with our UV map here. A little bit odd, not lining up quite like I expected, but that's fine. Put a couple of circles on there. Maybe do some, cheat a couple of seams that we didn't actually cut into the geometry, but we can kind of fake it here on the texture. One right here. Separate that from the turbine is going to go right in there. And then put one in here. I guess let's just kind of keep on with this. I can't even remember. Where does that? 3, 4, 5, and we'll have the actual exhaust vent in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this one should be the exhaust vent. Just make that one shaded in dark. And one more. For this one, which I actually think we're going to do the other way around. And maybe just a line of this. There. And actually, I want to make sure, because I'm worried that there's just a little bit of this texture overlapping into the engine there, so we'll just get the right color, and then we'll just paint that out. Up there, and hide this. And we will be coming back to this in another video, because there needs to be some grunge and some dirt and some realism added to this, but we will save this real quick. Then in our material here, here we go. We will open an image, get that texture. Hold on here. Oh, there we go. And there we have it. It's all still very flat looking, but the basic colors are there. There's the UV sheet. Got to admit, I'm actually really happy with the way that turbine turned out. And we will continue texturing on this engine and the rest of the racer in the next video. So hope everybody enjoyed, and I will see you there.